And that jarring cacophony tells you you're back with the Power of Three podcast. I'm Kenny Smith, and today we're bringing you a slightly shorter than normal episode, but there's a reason for that. A, I'm mega busy with my day job. B, I've got a bit of extra Big Finish work to get on with. And C, there's something special coming this weekend. Today we're taking a look at another novel, the most recently published original piece of Doctor Who fiction, The Moon Cruise, which was the 71st novel in the BBC new series Adventures range. It was released on the 13th of November 2025 with a cover by Lee Binding. It was written by Esme Jakimi Pearson and featured the 15th Doctor and Belinda Chandra. So, shall we take a look at the cover? So we can see the Doctor wearing the outfit he wore in the barbershop episode, holding his Sonic up. Belinda's behind him wearing her denim outfit with her belt on, and there appears to be some kind of robotic Marilyn Monroe with half face. It looks a bit like one of the visitors from V reaching up to try and grab at the back of the Doctor, and they're in some sort of spaceship corridor. It looks a bit like Nerva Beacon, but on a bigger budget, with some lovely spacey backgrounds and a bit of lens flare coming from the nearby sun. So yes, rather nice indeed, as Sylvester McCoy would say. But what more can we tell you about the book? Taking a look at the cover, it says, "Step right up for the most sensational cruise in the galaxy." The TARDIS lands on board a luxury space liner owned by the interstellar shipping magnate Marilyn Moon. The Moon Cruise offers its wealthy passengers up-close views of astounding cosmic wonders, and the Doctor and Belinda are soon high-rolling it on the top deck. But there is a sinister side to life on board. What is the secret of the smiling, blonde-haired mannequins? What happens to the cruise ship workers when they go off shift? The Doctor soon learns that not all prisons come with bars on the windows, while Belinda faces one of the greatest cruelties in the universe, a zero-pay contract in retail and hospitality that can never be broken. Ooh, don't want to have that, do you? Definitely not. Not good at all. So, before we go on, let's have an extract from the audiobook version, which has recently been released, and this is read for us by, oh goodness, I don't want to get her name wrong, but Kelvin Dunn. Apologies if it's wrong, sorry.
Chapter 1. The TARDIS slammed into the ground with all the grace of a brick hurled at someone's face. Sparks skittered across the floor of the control room. Alarms blared and died, then blared again. Belinda Chandra found herself in total disarray, limbs flying, hair in her face, sliding across the floor. Or was it the ceiling? The TARDIS rattled one last time and was still. "Brace yourself for landing," the Doctor called. He was standing by the console, a perfect picture of composure in a matchy orange outfit that reminded her of a kurta, but shorter. Over the top he wore a gorgeous dark red vest that fell to mid-thigh. All of it was creaseless and pressed. The only hint that he had just been thrown through time and space was the giddy glint in his eyes she noticed he got whenever they landed somewhere new. Belinda picked herself up from the floor one limb at a time, her glare so caustic it could have stripped paint. A little late for that, don't you think? The Doctor held his hands up in mock surrender. Silver rings glinted on his fingers. "Sorry." Belinda shook her head. The longer they travelled together, the more she began to suspect he liked the chaos. Thrived in it, perhaps. "No, you're not." His smile widened. "I am so." Brushing dust off her knees, Belinda stood. "Look, just go and get your Vindicator so we can get the reading and get out. Please." That's why they had landed here, on an asteroid in the middle of nowhere in the 27th century. The Vindicator needed more readings before it could anchor back to the fateful date of the 24th of May 2025. But nearly every time they'd landed prior to this, they'd been carried off on some mad adventure. The things they'd seen. a god of light in Miami in 1952, telepathic fungi and a living spacecraft. A colony base on a barren world, its crew stalked by an ancient, malevolent creature. She'd almost died. A shudder went down her spine at the memory. After that, Belinda had specifically requested they land in the most boring place the Doctor could think of in all of space and time. So he'd chosen this, an empty stretch of galaxy populated by rocks. Rocks are good. Nice and boring. Belinda had agreed. Let's go there. Hey, Belinda, the Doctor appeared behind her, the Vindicator slung by a strap over one arm so that he looked like a pop star with his guitar. Sorry about that rocky landing. Got to love them though. I don't. She whirled round, coming face to face with him. Her hip ached where it had smashed against the bottom of the console and her ears were ringing. I love the idea of getting home, Doctor. I love the idea of hearing my mum play the violin again or karaoke nights with my dad. I like the idea of a warm, comforting, home-cooked meal and my own bed. What if I never get to have that again? For just a moment, a shadow passed across the Doctor's expression. But then he smiled again. Is my cooking really that bad? Despite herself, Belinda felt an answering smile tug at her mouth. Doctor, you put tin sardines on a piece of chocolate and called it dinner. His brow furrowed. Salt and sweet. What's wrong with that? Belinda walked past him before he could see her smiling in earnest. It was ridiculous how charming he was. How quickly he could turn her mood around. She wondered if he'd had lots of practice, assuaging the fears of grumpy human beings. She knew there had been others before her, other people who had travelled with the Doctor. She got the sense they'd all been a bit more wide-eyed and in love with it all. Sometimes she understood that. But she had a life back in London. One she very much wanted to return to alive. She walked to the door, resting her palm on it before turning back to the Doctor, who was mumbling something about the limited human palate. She leant against the door, pushing on it gently. May I? Be my guest, he nodded. Belinda grinned and pushed open the door. She'd expected views for miles, the empty vacuum of space stretching on, speckled with diamond-like stars. Suns, really, and the billowing clouds of gas and dust called nebulae, where stars were born. She'd secretly wanted to see a comet, one like Halley's Comet with a bright tail of light, or a passing spaceship crawling through the darkness. The sight that greeted her was totally underwhelming. A concrete corridor stretched out for many metres, strange symbols painted on in reflective paint. One of them looked like a stick figure of some strange life form getting electrocuted by jagged bolts of lightning. Her heart stopped. She wondered if she should turn back, go back to the TARDIS and demand the Doctor redo his calculations, remove them from this time and place and try again. She was hit with a strange pang of homesickness. She missed her room in the house share. Her housemates taking too long in the bathroom. She missed the hospital, the routines and the training, the way she had always known what to do, even if she felt overwhelmed. Beside her, the Doctor stepped out of the TARDIS, Vindicator hefted over one shoulder. Oh. Not an asteroid. Definitely not an asteroid. He took a few brash steps forward, drawing the sonic out of an inside pocket and scanning the walls. Its high-pitched whine had become comforting. Usually, the sonic meant answers. But now, the Doctor frowned, holding the sonic close to his eyes to read it better in the low, flickering light of the corridor. But that doesn't make any sense, he muttered.
Thanks to BBC Audiobooks for that. That came from the official release, and that was released on the 13th of November last year, same day as the print edition, and it's still available now. And it's an unabridged reading from BBC Audio, so you'll be able to get it in all the best retailers. So, what more can we tell you about the author? Esme Jakimi Pearson, who of course novelised The Church on Ruby Road, and we had her on as a guest then. Well, Esme is a Sunday Times best-selling author of fantasy fiction, and the inaugural winner of the Future Worlds Prize in 2020. Her forthcoming novel, Gutter Witch, sold to Penguin Random House after an intense 8-way auction. In the UK, the book sold to Bloomsbury after a 9-way auction. Esme's first novel was nominated for Best British and Irish Book at the TikTok Book Awards. Raised between London and Sydney, Esme is an author of Nigerian, Jamaican and British Australian heritage. Her work primarily focuses on people who live at the intersection of identities, whether in our world or others. She holds a BA in English Literature and Classical Studies from the University of Exeter. Now, sadly, Esme has been so busy, she is working away on this year's BBC special release, which you may be aware of, featuring the Fugitive Doctor. That's called Circuit Breaker. But since Esme can't talk to us about the book, we're delighted to welcome our old pal, but he's not that old, the one and only Mr. Steve Cole.
I'm Steve Cole, and I was the editor of The Moon Cruise.
Of course, here we have Esme back doing her first original Doctor Who adventure. Of course, she had novelised The Church on Ruby Road for you previously.
She had, and was originally going to write a graphic novel for us. So it was all lined up. We had Mike Collins on board. Esme shot out some ideas, and we picked one that we liked, and we worked that up. Then I think the word came that the costings were going to make this project a little prohibitive creatively. So loved the story so much, thought, why don't we just turn this into another shooty novel? And Esme was up for it. So it was a case of, instead of telling it visually, tell it through prose, which of course was no problem for her.
It's a very... There's some almost like graphic horror for the mind's eye in here, which I really enjoyed, with the conversions into the droids, which I thought was brilliant.
Yes, it's always nice to have a bit of body horror in Doctor Who. It kind of goes so well with the programme, right back to its black and white days. So, yeah, always welcome a chance for that. And Esme is such a fun and light and lovely person. I quite enjoyed her getting a bit more grisly and horrible. But really, I think it's the plight of the poor workers on board the Moon Cruise that's the truly horrific aspect of it. And Esme will be able to tell you, but I think she had some experience of what it's like to work in hospitality, which is not an industry for the faint-hearted or for those expecting any kind of fairness or much reward. So it was quite nice to get a bit of a kind of a topical little satirical spin as well, which is something Doctor Who has always done so well.
Yep, from 0-hour contracts to 40-year contracts to be served concurrently.
Exactly, with time on every time before there's a minor inflection of what's going on. Yes, it was. I enjoyed that premise very much. It felt a little bit McCoyish, and in fact, the original title for this was "The Greatest Mall in the Galaxy," I think, which was surely a tribute. Certainly, it made me think that, but it did put me in mind of McCoy's Doctor, arriving to foment rebellion and get away in time for tea. It was that kind of a story. So it felt simultaneously quite light hijinks, sort of married to a kind of darker central concept. And I had to kind of work with Esme to kind of work out and measure out the full horror of what Madeline Moon is really up to. Yeah,
and what a great villainess she is.
Indeed, with her little robotic versions going around. There were so many ideas for this flying around. In the end, it was one we sort of took. We were able to pick the best of the best bits to turn it into that story. And Esme told it very willingly and well.
Thanks as ever to Steve, who'll be back on the podcast very soon. Now, Moon Cruise was reviewed in Doctor Who magazine in the winter edition published at the end of last year, and here's what the review said by David Richardson. The Doctor and Belinda embrace the opportunity to vacation on the Moon Cruise, a vast luxury space liner that is making its decades-long maiden voyage out among the stars. The ship is the centre of a mystery, and the Doctor reveals that it will soon disappear for 50 years, and no one knows why. The Moon Cruise is embedded in the story arc of Season 2, with the Doctor still trying to get Belinda home, and still using the Vindicator to chart a course to the 24th of May 2025. All is present and correct tonally, and this is Doctor Who with something to say, as the vessel, in all its grandeur, represents capitalism run rampant. The story is something of a spiritual sibling to The Savages, the Macra Terror and Paradise Towers, scratching beneath the luxury of the consumerist dream and finding decay and rot behind the facade. Marilyn Moon, the tech trillionaire behind this endeavour, is as monstrous as any Doctor Who foe can be. Quotes, "She walked onto the stage, ready to exploit her fellow living creatures for profit. And her army of sinister rolling mannequins have a shocking secret that marks a brilliant midpoint rug pull. What a shame that the author neglects to give them a name, as they're a fabulous creation crying out for their own identity." Esme captures the 15th Doctor well, especially his energy, style and sense of fun. It was ridiculous how charming he was. The rage is also there, his fury at injustice, and we're almost waiting for him to reach the tipping point seen in Interstellar. And we're almost waiting for him to reach the tipping point seen in the Interstellar Song Contest. That was why he didn't like to stay in one place for too long. Every feeling turned back into anger eventually. The Doctor is separated from Belinda for much of the page count, so we don't get to languish enough in the joy of these two mates sharing an adventure, though it does mean Belle has some space to demonstrate her ingenuity and resilience when she's caught with the corporate machine and is subsequently trapped by a vast alien centipede. An audiobook version is also available, excellently narrated by Keofin Dunn, who played Shea Costalion in The Well, and embellished with audio effects. Feeling remarkably like it could be a novelisation of a Season 2 episode, The Moon Cruise leaves us feeling nostalgia for an era that was over before its time. Thank you, David. As we turn to Goodreads, we can see the book's got a rating of 3.62. It's had 55 ratings and 10 reviews. 5 stars 16%, 4 stars 41%, 3 stars 32%, 2 stars 5% and 1 star 3%. Let's start with a 5-star review from Paul Flint. "This novel starts on a starship, full of shops, different aliens abound, its many floors. Belinda and the Doctor are so well written, it's like you're watching a TV episode. Marilyn Moon is quite the despicable character, they named the ship after her. At first glance it looks like the very height of luxury, spa treatments, relaxing places, but hidden beneath that beautiful, wondrous veneer lie ominous secrets. Soon the Doctor and Belinda are involved in a scary reality. Things are not quite what they appear to be, and the truth turns out to be much darker. Beware the mannequins." 4 stars from Alex Page. Alex with a Y and Page with an extra Y in the middle. Alex says, "A pretty competent Doctor Who adventure. The Doctor and Belinda are well characterised, with even some of that friction between the two of them that the series forgot about still present. The critiques of capitalism here are not unique and not exactly subtle, but that's an unnecessary high bar to hold a Doctor Who tie-in novel to. That it is here at all is appreciated and written in a way that really enhanced the sense of the world being conveyed. There were some moments that felt a little odd, like just kind of one-off encounters that didn't thematically resonate with the rest of the book and just seemed out of place. The Doctor and Jax and the river full of piranhas, for example, or Belinda fighting some kind of space centipede. I'd have liked Jax and Vanessa to get more time together, but given the story being told, it makes sense that they didn't. For me, the book loses like half a point for only implying that Jax and Vanessa are lesbians, and for how quickly the tools of oppression are repatriated to become symbols of unity. It just doesn't feel like such an immediate turnaround is realistic. Otherwise, a really good Doctor Who story that I'm glad I spent time with." There's a 4-star review from Michael. "At times this definitely feels like a pitch for a 45-minute episode that's been stretched most successfully into a fairly short novel. But with that stretching comes a few scenes that don't go anywhere and don't really mesh thematically with the bulk of the story, that are clearly there just to kill time the same way the padding in a 6-part Third Doctor serial would do. However, it's an immensely fun little adventure nonetheless, one that perfectly captures the dynamic of the 15th Doctor and Belinda and nicely slots in alongside their televised adventures." 3 stars from Finlay O'Riordan. "This is a pretty typical NSA, so far as it provides a relatively enjoyable read, but ultimately feels like a filler episode. Some good points first. Jakimi Pearson clearly understands the 15th Doctor and Belinda. She characterises them well, and I thought her original characters were strong too, particularly Jax and Vanessa. However, the fact of the matter is, this story is nothing new. The greedy rich upper class thrives while feeding scraps to the working class, who ultimately overthrow them with a nudge from the Doctor. It's been done to death 1,000 times before across the Doctor Who franchise. Yes, it was a relatively enjoyable book, but that doesn't mean it's anything original. In the same vein, I like it when Doctor Who books reference other Doctor Who books, so the initial nod to Spectral Scream was welcome. But then, it just kept getting referenced every other page to the point that I thought Gary Russell might have taken over writing this one. There were also a few loose ends and inconsistencies. What was the point of the giant centipede? How could Belinda and the Doctor hear Monroe in the machine when it was supposedly soundproof? What were the mushrooms all about? Speaking of that centipede, for a while I thought we were in for an Auton story. The eye seemed like a reference to the Nestine consciousness, and the Marilyn mannequins definitely sound like Autons until the wires come into play. Nothing wrong with an original villain, but since Shooty faced practically no classic monsters outside of his finales, it would have been a nice surprise to just use the Autons here. Overall, despite how critical I may sound, I did enjoy this book more than not, but I can't help not overlooking its sore points. P.S. For those wondering if there is a Mrs. Flood cameo here, no, there isn't. And finally, a 1-star review from Kelsey Hayes. What a load of rubbish! Nothing to say about this book because it made absolutely no impact on my life. And Kelsey concluded with a laughing emoji. Oh dear, poor Kelsey. So there we go. If you've enjoyed today's episode, feel free to leave a review on wherever you get your podcast from. They always help with the optics, apparently. You can follow us on social media at Power of 3 Pod on Twitter. We've got our Facebook group, and we're on Blue Sky at Finished Zine. It's time to go. And I'm going to play out with a song, as ever, but this time it's actually an advert tune. And this is one that I remember from when my daughter was very small. This is an advert for a product called... well, you're about to find out. It sounds very similar to Moon Cruise. So, until next time, I've been Kenny Smith. Bye-bye.
Moon shoes, kid-powered anti-gravity shoes. Moon shoes, jumping up and down like a kangaroo. Moon shoes, jump straight to the moon with shoes that defy gravity. Kid-powered fun is a certainty. Moon shoes, the anti-gravity shoes. Moon shoes, a many-sized trampoline. Those shoes defy gravity. Jump to the moon, it's a necessity. How high can you jump with moon shoes? New moon shoes, many-sized trampolines for your feet from Big Time Toys. Each set sold separately.